Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the workshop, Basic Training Intro to Python Skills for AI Part 2. I just saw a question in the chat asking if this is a continuation to yesterday's workshop, and the answer to that is yes. This is Part 2 of a four-part workshop on AI skills using Python. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick introduction or about myself. My name is Ethan. I'm here to lead this session today. I'm a junior at the University of Maryland in College Park, and my favorite programming language tool is coincidentally Python. So that's perfect for today's session. So just a quick information, a little bit more information about Major League Hacking, which I'm sure you all already know for participating in this event. But anyways, MLH's mission is to empower hackers. We have over 65,000 participants coming to our events with over 12,000 projects created and in 400 plus cities. And you can find more resources about us at mlh.io. This workshop today is sponsored by Capital One, and they wanted to make sure that we got the idea across about the idea of social good. So I'm just going to read what they have to say here. So Capital One is dedicated to providing opportunities and resources that will enable more people to succeed through our Future Edge program. Or more people to succeed. Through our Future Edge program, we're investing in and collaborating with leading educational and community organizations across the United States to help more people succeed in the 21st century. We're empowering families through financial literacy and affordable housing, helping individuals bridge the digital skills gap, and showing small businesses how to harness technology to grow and compete. So what are you going to learn today by participating in this workshop? You're going to learn how Python can be used to create web apps. You're going to learn several useful Python libraries and how to create a chat experience in a web app. So why does all this information matter? Many artificial intelligence projects are on the internet or on the web, and you want to be able to share this cool work with other people. And learning how to use third-party libraries is a skill that is very important and that you'll want to know how to use when using any kind of programming language. And once you learn one programming language, you can really learn any. It makes learning others much, much easier. So if you learn Python, it should open the world of programming to you. So let's just do a little bit of a recap about what we learned last time. So that was probably just, I wasn't there for that workshop, but I believe it was probably just basic Python syntax. Instead of discussing with people around you, because this is more of a stream platform, I'd say to just kind of review them, try to think about what you learned at the last workshop if you were there. And if you weren't there, it might be a good idea to Google some kind of Python cheat sheet and take a look at that as we're working today. So we're going to, you're going to use your new Python skills to create a chatbot. You can give it a try by going to the URL below. I'm going to also be following along with it. I'm just going to try and, share my screen accordingly so that, because sometimes we're going to be looking at the slides and sometimes we're going to be looking at my screen. So for now, I do have this open, but I don't think it makes sense for me to switch for you all to see yet. Hold on 1 second. So we're going to be making a Markov Chain Bot today. And it looks like it's going to be some kind of chat messaging application. So to continue, how does this work? Here I actually am going to share my screen real quick. And then this is the what we're going to be making today, this Markov Chain Bot. And let's see here. And so you can see that in the first box, called a text field. The user enters a person's Twitter name, Here the default is at Jason Witten, or you can also use at Bill Gates, at Michelle Obama, literally anyone's Twitter account. And then in the second box, the user enters some kind of message, and then in the I'm just gonna put random words here, and the Twitter name and the messages are sent to the app. And it says you, one person, and then Jason Witten can respond using, I guess, AI. So now, back to the slides. This app uses a library called Beautiful Soup to scrape up to 10,000 tweets from a user using the Twitter API. So yeah, Beautiful Soup is a really, really important Python library that we're going to use today. And the app uses a Python library called Flask to handle the requests and the responses. And then the app randomly returns one of the tweets to you. So a lot of what we're going to be using today involves web scraping. And so just to go into a little bit about what web scraping is, lots of information on the internet is text. Python has some libraries that you can use to easily scrape that text or copy it from the website into a file. Basically what you can do is using computer programming and different certain commands, you can pull information from the internet to maybe put it into to some kind of data structure. So maybe that's an array or some other kind of structure. So most libraries have documentation to help you learn how to use the library. So once you pick one, I'm sure there's tons of tutorials if you choose a popular one. This is just some more information about web scraping. You can see the Beautiful Soup documentation here by going to mlhlocal.host/beautifulsoup. You won't need this documentation today, but you should get used to reading and learning from this documentation because it's a very important skill for developers to have. I'm actually going to pull up this real quick, mlhlocal.host/beautifulsoup, so that we can take a quick look on it. Let's see. So as you can see, this is the Beautiful Soup documentation. Beautiful Soup is a Python library for pulling data out of HTML and XML files. It works with your favorite parser to provide idiomatic ways of navigating, searching, and modifying the parse tree. So basically, these are just all different things involving Beautiful Soup. Anything that you want to do with it, you should be able to find using the documentation. And it's a really good skill to have because it's a really good skill to have because I mean you're gonna be going through lots of different documentation in your time as a computer programmer. So again, we're not going to be using much of this today, so I'm not going to get into the deep of it, but I do recommend that Beautiful Soup is an easy Python library to learn, and this is a great website to use to learn it. So if you wanted to continue to learn after this, that is one way that you could do that. But with that, I'm going to switch back here. Keep moving. So how are we going to rebuild the Markov Chain Bot that I showed you before? These are the steps that you're going to need to take. You're going to make your own copy of the code on Glitch. You'll read through the code and discuss it with others. I'll probably just kind of explain a little bit since we're in the stream setting and not Zoom setting. And then we'll write some of the missing Python code, and then we'll recap and maybe take a quiz. So that may sound like a lot of steps, but part of the coding programming is learning how to use all the different tools work and how they work together. So, and I'm going to be here to help you through it, so it's not that big of a deal. Some of the things to keep in mind that writing code is tricky, so you're going to want to pay attention to some certain best practices. So the majority of the time when something isn't working with your code, it's as simple as a typo. So make sure that you've typed everything correctly before moving on to other debugging techniques. Make sure that if it's Java, that you didn't miss a semicolon at the end of the statement. Or if it's Python, I think it's almost easier to make those, almost harder to make those small mistakes because it has less syntax rules. But you want to make sure that you didn't miss a closed parenthesis or something like that. Because I've definitely been there, and I'm sure other people have been there too, where you're spending all this time on this bug, and it's really just because you had a typo in there. So be sure to try to avoid typos and proofread to make sure you get them out of there before you move to other debugging techniques. So Glitch has a really cool rewind feature. If your code was working before and it's not working now, you can use rewind feature to back this up. That's kind of just that concept is kind of version control. It's kind of what GitHub is. You can kind of look and see different versions of your code. And then it's okay to make mistakes. You're learning something new, and that's the fun of it. So let's get started. So let's see here. Yeah, okay, cool. So what Python skills did we learn last time? We learned that about variables. We learned about loops, functions, and libraries. Variables in programming are a lot like variables in math. They store information for us. That's like saying x equals 5 or x equals my name, Ethan, or x equals anything like that. That's a variable. Loops are a way that in programs we use to perform the same task multiple times. So say you have a list of people's names and they're all in lowercase, but you want them all in uppercase. You could loop through that list and make them all uppercase. A function is a structure that you can use in your program to reuse bits of code throughout the program. So say that you're going to want to make a bunch of different strings, lowercase or uppercase, in your program. A function to do that would make sense. This way you can just call the function every time instead of writing the code to make a string lowercase every single time. And then libraries are a collection of functions someone wrote, which we can import to our own programs to use. That's how we use Beautiful Soup and different libraries, just to basically use work that someone already did to do something else. So what are we going to learn today? We're going to learn regular expressions, which is a programming concept used to work with text. And we're going to use imports, which using data or functions from other sources like libraries or other files in our project to, in our program. And another cool term here is data cleaning, which is the process of using code to remove or edit parts of data that we don't want, to standardize it and make it easier to work with. So actually, like this past semester, when I was working on a project that involved data science and web scraping, I would use a data set that was like really big, and I wasn't trying to analyze the entire data set. There were probably categories on it that I didn't need. So that's the process of data cleaning, where I just kind of removed columns and different elements of the data that made it easier to read for my analysis, and just kind of got rid of things we don't want. And again, the best way to learn about code is to code, so not to read about it. So we're just going to dive in here. Let's explore the code. This is where I'm going to switch back over to this, and just so I can get my slides open to make sure that I can follow along here. Cool. So we're going to head over to glitch.com. It's glitch.com. Then you're going to want to click sign in. And I don't actually have an account active right now either. So I'm going to also make an account from scratch here. If it ever loads. Let's sign up. Use my GitHub account. All right, so looks like I've made my account. And then the next thing that we're going to want to do here is go to a different tab and type in mlh-locale.host/glitch-python-2, but in Roman numerals, so that's II. And copy that in here. Yeah, I just sent the chat to where we currently are. I just sent the link to where we currently are in chat. That's going to bring you to the basic training 2 glitch page. And what we're going to be able to do is click. We should be able to edit the project somewhere. Let's see here. Let's see here. Now, this contains the starter code for basic training. So I think I'm going to click View Source. And I'm trying to edit the project, which I think I'm already in. So let's see here. So we're going to get the code by, I guess we're already in basic training 2. And I guess what you can do is you can click Remix to edit. Or if you're not on my screen, you can click Remix. And that's basically kind of going to give you an option to have your own version of this code that you can work on yourself. So that's kind of created a Mountain Hungry yard for me. It might make something different for you. So now that we have the code, what we need to do is to explore it. So I'm just going to kind of look through it with you. So what files are in this project? We have the logo.svg, which I believe would be, let's see here. We have the assets. So we have, let's see here. All right. So in templates, we have homepage.html. So if you open that up, you'll see an HTML file here. This is the file that provides the structure of our website and provides the text fields where the user types in their questions. And then we also have config.py. This is a file that tells Glitch how to run our app. This is kind of just like, it makes it run. You know, it configures everything, tells Glitch, tells Flask, this is how we're running it. We have style.css, which I think might be it's in the static folder. That's the CSS. This is kind of the styles that our web page are going to use to make it kind of designed. And then we have script.js, which is the JavaScript that's going to add the bot responses to the center of the web page. And I do believe that is it. I guess we have we also have in assets, we have the logo.png, which is going to be the image at the top. Cool. So now that we, I guess there's a couple more files that I'd actually like to go over. So we have the main.py, which is a Python file that handles the requests and responses for our file. When a user types a message into the chat box, they are requesting the bot to send the message back. So that's kind of like, this is just like the request here is like to send the message back. So when I make my own comment, it triggers the API to request the tweet from the user. Then there's Twitter scraper fetcher.py. This is a file that scrapes tweets. We'll be working on this one today because this is where the web scraping is going on. We have requirements.txt. This just kind of tells us all the different libraries and versions for each of those libraries that our project needs to work. Actually, when you have a project locally and you have one of these files, you can actually tell it to download all of the necessary libraries straight from this file. So it makes it really easy to know what you need to get going. And then there's the resources.md and readme.md, which are both markdown files that just kind of like give you information about the directory. So now that we've explored the code, now we just got to write some code. And the best way to do that is kind of to dive in. So in order to run the glitch app, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to click show, which let's see where that is here. You can run the app clicking show in the top bar. I think, yeah, so like what I'm looking at might be a little bit out of date. I think what we need to do in order to run it is to click the refresh button, and that should use the most updated code. And then we aren't ready to run the code yet because we have to write some functions first. So what we need to do is go to the .env file here. And .env file is what contains the environment credentials we need to run the application. So you're going to open up the .env file and add the following details. So it looks like this. I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to get to the slide that you all need to follow. It's slide 31. So slide 31. Basically, when you go to .env on glitch, you're going to want to type in this information. And I'm going to type it in at the same time as you. And it's super important here that you make sure that it's exactly the way it's typed on the screen. Remember what we talked about before, for those of you that just joined, a lot of the errors that occur in programming a lot of the time for people are typos. So you want to make sure that you didn't have a typo, because then it's going to cause it not to work, and you might not know what the reason is. All right. So back to my screen, you can kind of see that I've typed all this in. And then what you're going to want to do after you have it all updated is, I think it actually looks like it's automatically saving. So I think if we click away and then click back, it's going to save what we did. So I think we don't have to worry about saving. So the next thing we're going to want to do is open Twitter scraper fetcher.py. This is where we're going to do some web scraping, and there's nothing written yet because that's the methods that we're going to write. Get elements returns all data from a Twitter account. Get user tweets extracts the tweet data from the element data. And clean tweets data removes emojis, URLs, and other data we don't want from the tweets. So for get elements, we're going to use libraries called requests and beautiful soup. So if you can see, this has already been imported at the top of the file, because those are the imports that we're going to need to work. And then after that, so these two imports, what they do is they import libraries which can scrape data from websites for us. And then this function, get elements, has one parameter, Twitter handle, which represents a Twitter username. And then on line 12, we create a full, or I guess it's, let's see here. I think it's more like line 15. We create a full Twitter URL. and which we're about to do. And this is going to create by a Twitter URL by adding the two strings together. It's going to add Twitter URL in addition to the Twitter handle, which together is going to make the code. So actually, I'm going to switch back to the slides here, so you can see what I'm talking about. So these are the three methods we're working on, and this is what you're going to want to type in to get elements. And I'm going to do it with you. So it's just that one-liner right there. And essentially, as you can see on this example at the bottom, we're creating URL by using the Twitter URL, which is a base, which is like a variable that we already have. And then we use Twitter handle, which is the parameter, which would be like /NASA, which is like the user account. Cool. And yes, I just saw in the chat someone asked about taking out pass. You would want to get rid of that. Pass is just kind of a temporary thing that's there for when we are like before the code is in there. And then let's see here. Because it says here on line 12, we should create the Twitter URL. But line 12 on my end is empty. But this works by adding two strings together, the Twitter URL on line 8, and a Twitter handle passed into the function as a parameter. But I'm not seeing the, oh no, I think the Twitter URL, it looks like it was imported from config. So if you look at config.py, Twitter URL is sent here to be MLH Twitter API // and MLH Twitter API is an environment variable. So if I guess .getEnv is probably going to .env, and .env MLH Twitter API is this link that we put in here before. So if you think about the cycle here, we have MLH Twitter API with this link that we put in here, which is the localized Python API. And then this is being linked in our config.py to be set to MLH Twitter API variable. And then in Twitter Scraper fetcher.py, it is being imported at the top here from config. So from config where we imported that, we made that variable, import Twitter URL. Cool. So the next thing that we need to do now. Oh, I just realized that you weren't looking at my screen while I was highlighting that stuff, but if you were looking at the files that I was mentioning, then you should be good to go. So the next thing that you want to do is add these two lines under the line that we just added. So I'm going to do that with you. Okay. So if you follow what we just did, line 13, which I think is meant to talk about line 16. Line 16, we use the request library to return all of the HTML data from that web page. So if you see, we have imported requests on the first line. So when you basically are using that library to call get, which is a function of the request library, and then get is a function that is going to use a URL and some other parameters to grab data from it. Oh, yep, that's my bad. Let me switch the screen. So if you're looking at this function right here, this is like I've typed in everything that was on the screen before. So if you see here, requests is from up here, imported up here, and it's the same. It's spelled the same exact way, so we know they're related. And then get is a function of the request library, which takes in these parameters. One being the URL from before, so we can visit that URL, and then we know it's going to use user agents, which is a field that's telling Twitter which device and browser we are using. So just kind of some configuration parameters. And then line 14, from the response we receive from the web page, we collect the HTML content and store it in this variable HTML. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called soup. So soup is going to look like this. It's going to say soup equals beautiful soup. And like spelled the same way as in line 2. And inside of it, you're gonna pass the parameter HTML and HTML dot parser. And in this line, we're creating a variable soup, which is a new beautiful soup object, which is created in the beautiful soup library. And we create it and say that we want to analyze the HTML content we created on line 14. Okay. So pretty straightforward still. And then the next thing, we're going to add our return statement for this function. And let's type it out together. It's going to say return soup dot find underscore all parentheses in all caps content container tags, and then in brackets class in quotes do content class name. So these are basically just different parameters that Beautiful Soup uses to organize the data that we're collecting in the HTML. We're essentially putting our soup variable to use and asking it to find all of the relevant information that we need and return. So basically, soup just kind of collected all of the HTML from the Twitter file that we were talking about before. And then now in the return statement, we're using soup's find all method to kind of data clean and get the data that we want using these specialized parameters that you could probably find using the Beautiful Soup documentation we were talking about earlier. Cool. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on the next function, get user tweets. So you can delete the comment and pass. And for the first line, you can write elements equals get elements, like we're calling the element from before, and then as a parameter, pass Twitter handle. So what this is doing on line 23, or on line 20, line 23, it shows that we have a parameter called Twitter handle. That's the user's Twitter handle. And then we use the function we just wrote above, and we call get elements on the Twitter handle. And what it's going to do is it's going to return what this got, and it's going to store it in the elements variable. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to declare, or I guess initialize, a tweets array as an empty array. This is going to contain the list of tweets we extract using Beautiful Soup. So what we have to do is we have to fill up that array. And we're going to do that using a for loop. So essentially what we're going to do is type out for post in elements. So elements is an array of the elements that we got from the web scraping operation, right? And then by saying for post in elements, we're saying for all of the Twitter handle, all of the Twitter, oh, I guess it's not Twitter handles, all of the posts in elements. So I guess, for example, what we just did is we call elements is all of the tweets and all of the information of whoever's Twitter handle this is. So now it's going to search for each post in these lists of posts. And then for text in post.contents, so this is essentially a nested for loop, meaning that there's two for loops kind of going on within each other. And so again, what I just said, I'll repeat one more time. For each post in this list of posts elements, and then for each test, for each piece of text in post. So now this is just individual post contents. We're going to do some work. All right, so this is basically a way for us to target each post for each like each single post text of the single Twitter account. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add some stuff to the for loop. So we're going to add an if statement, and it's going to say if text dot if text dot string not in empty items colon then tweets dot append text dot string. Turn tweets. So what's this doing? What this is doing on line 30 here is if the text contains some data that is not empty, meaning it contains a string that's not in empty items. If it were in empty items, that means it would be an empty string. And then if it isn't, then append it to the tweet and then return tweets. And then now we only have one more function to add, and that's the clean tweets data. And in order to do that, we're going to use some regular expressions. And for that, I'm going to pop back into the other slides. And that's on slide 44 is where we're beginning with that. So regular expressions. We're going to clean up our tweets with a powerful programming tool called regular expressions. A regular expression, or regex for short, is a sequence of characters that create a search pattern. We can use it to remove all data that doesn't match our regex search criteria. And I'm going to get a little bit into more of what that means now. So look at this example. First, we create a regex pattern here, calling re.compile, and then some weird looking stuff. And let's break up that weird looking stuff. So there's re, which is the Python regex library, and if you look at your glitch.com, it's on line 4, and it's imported as re. So that's how we imported the regex library for Python. And then then this other thing, r:/https/s+ is kind of this it's kind of like code, but what it means is create a regular expression r that finds text that starts with HTTP and is followed by any length of string. So like there could have been some different syntax there that would say only compile or only find text that has a string of length that, or an integer of length that, or 2 E's, right? Like you can basically target and try to find certain kinds of combinations of characters, and that's why it is used so heavily. And then re.all means apply this to everything, including ulines. So basically, you're going to apply to everything that that we're passing into it. Then let's look at this example here. So we have this example tweet that says like, check out this URL, and then gives the link. And then text without the URL. Basically, what it's doing here is it's going to it's trying to remove the link from the tweet by using this subtraction method. And we use sub, which is short for substitute, which is a function to replace any text that matches our search pattern with an empty string. And then the variable text without URL would then equal check out this URL. And basically, what the parameter is for this function sub, the first parameter is a regex operation, or a regex expression, regular expression, I guess you could just say. And in order to do that, it just typed the letter R and then quotes. So R is saying I'm using regular expressions, and then the quotes is the expression. And in this case, it was because we just wanted an empty string. We wanted to remove all of the empty strings. But again, say we wanted to remove all of some other stuff, we could change that up syntax to target that. And we won't ask you to write some search patterns from scratch. You may do this later in your programming life. But you can also find a regex sort of calculator online called, there's a really good one called Regex 101, or you can just look up regex parser online, and you can it goes both ways. You can type in your regular expression and then try out different things to see if they match, or you can type out a message and get a regular expression that would match it. But we're not going to need something that complicated today. And basically, what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to Twitter scraper fetcher.py, and we're going to, I guess we're going to open resources.txt. And we're going to copy lines 3 through 11. Yeah, so basically we're copying everything in emoji pattern. And then these are some regular expressions that will search for ranges of Unicode and different emojis and whatnot. And it'll, for example, this here, I'm going to switch gears again here. If you look at this, these different Unicode characters represent different kinds of emojis, and this resources page just gave us those data points that we're going to need to make regular expressions. So now we're going to go into clean tweets data in I believe in Twitter scraper fetcher.py. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy what we just we're going to paste what we just copied in. That's all we're going to need. And then after that, we're going to add a few more little regex lines to remove URLs and tweets that mention other URLs. So let's see here. So we just copied in the emoji pattern. So we just copied in this emoji pattern, and under it, we're going to declare another variable called URL underscore pattern. Scroll up here a little bit so you can see it there. And then we're going to set that equal to RE, because we're using the regular expressions library, dot compile R, because we're using a regular expression, and then in quotes, HTTPS / S, capital S plus close quote, comma, and then RE again, dot all. And then again, we're going to create, let's see here. I think I did not need that quote there. I just need that. And then we're going to type mentions underscore pattern equals RE dot compile R quote at slash S plus, and then close the quote, and then RE dot all. So for the URL pattern, this is essentially saying anything that starts with HTTPS and then followed by a string. And then mentions pattern is basically starts with the @ symbol and then followed by a string that would represent someone's user account. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make, and just to have an idea about coding style, right? You can kind of tell that in my methods, I'm set with things that do something different are separated by an empty line. So this is declaring this variable here. Actually, there should not be an empty line there because these are all variable declarations or initializations, and those are not going to be separated by a line. But now that I'm going to go on to do something else where I'm going to use a for loop, that's a different area of this method, and I'm going to separate it with an empty line. You can kind of see here is the same idea where we had two declarations, an empty line, and code. And obviously, this is not the most important thing you want to think about as you're learning because you want to just focus on learning. But later, you'll want to realize that coding style is really important because you want people to be able to read your code very easily and understand. So moving on, the variable that we're going to need for our for loop is called clean underscore tweets, and we're going to initialize that as an empty array. And then for tweet, in tweets, tweets is the parameter that we got in this method. So for each tweet in this list of tweets, we're going to, inside the for loop, make a variable called text without emoji. And we're going to set that to emoji pattern dot sub. So we already have emoji pattern as something that we know exists. And then we're going to subtract what we don't want from it, which is a regular expression of an empty string in tweet. So basically going to make, it's going to give us text that is going to take this emoji pattern and I guess it's going to subtract anything that, it's going to basically subtract all of the emojis from the tweet and give us that new string. The next thing we want is text without URL. And for that, we want URL underscore pattern dot sub, because we're subtracting it, R empty string text without emoji. And we're not using tweet here because first we're removing the emojis, and then we're using the emoji list text in the next function call to remove the URLs. And then we're going to use cleaned tweets array that we just initialized, and we're going to do dot append to add the clean tweet to our new array of clean tweets. So in order to do that, we're going to do mentions underscore pattern dot sub R empty string text without URL. Cool. So I believe that is just getting rid of the @ symbol in the name or adding the @ symbol. But either way, that is all we need to do besides in the for loop. And then in the end, all we need to do is return clean tweets. Something to realize that is kind of important here is that clean tweets, because it is used later outside of the for loop, it's here, which is outside of the for loop. It has to be declared outside the for loop also. Because if I declared it in here, then when I wanted to return it, it would be outside of the scope of the program, and it would not. It wouldn't recognize it. It would say unknown variable. But because we declared it outside of the for loop, it's in the scope of the entire method and is able to be accessed here. All right. So just to recap what we just did, we created a new function that will remove all sorts of unnecessary characters from our tweets. And now what we're going to need to do is we're going to pivot to the main.py file, and we're going to see how it returns a tweet to the user. So lines 17, let's see here. Yeah, lines 17 to 20 is what we're going to look at first. And here, when a user enters a question on our web page, we save their message in a variable called question, and then save the Twitter handle of the person they want to talk to. So say, okay, well, when someone sends a question, it generates a message, and the question is going to be set to the body message, and the Twitter handle is, again, the body username. So body is probably some kind of hash map, and message is the key that hashes to the actual string message, and username is probably the string that hashes to the actual username, and that's how it is being assigned. In the try block here, this is called a try block. The program will first attempt to do the code inside of this block, and if it doesn't work, it'll move to the except block. And yeah, basically, it's going to try to send the answer to the app to display the user, but if for some reason it doesn't work, it's going to send an exception that says, sorry, I couldn't process that, try again. So this way, instead of just crashing the program, the programmer knows that, or we know that something here might cause an error. But instead of causing the whole program to crash when that happens, we create this except block that says if an exception is thrown, just say, sorry, try again, instead of crashing the whole program. It's a really commonly used thing in programming. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is just try out the app. So if you can kind of see on the right here, we should have a working version of it. So say who I want to chat with is at Jason Witten. I type that in. And then I'm going to type my message. How are you? Well, for some reason, we're not getting a response. Let's see why that might be. We should be getting a response here. Let's see why it might not be. I wonder if I have to save something. Return cleaned tweets. Okay. Let's see here. Main.py. We in the try block. this is kind of part of the process. Sometimes everything doesn't work exactly how you want it to, so you got to make it work. And it's no big deal. Can't get upset about it because it's just kind of part of the problem. Let's see what happens when you send it. So I've tried different parameters, and we're all kind of getting the same issue where we're not getting a response. Let's see here. So basically, I wonder if we could see like the terminal while it's running, because that's one thing that you would do is try to see if there's some kind of error occurring that would cause this. And just to see how it's supposed to work, we're supposed to be able to just kind of type at Bill Gates, how are you? Huh. I wonder if Twitter is down, because this is the oh wait, no, now Bill Gates got a response. So I guess it was just kind of slow. One thing that you can do when this happens is to go back through the code that was written for us and make sure it's exactly the same. Let's see here, though. So basically, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first function that we wrote in the slides, which is get elements. Make sure it's exactly the same. So URL equals Twitter underscore URL plus Twitter underscore handle. Response equals request.get URL headers equals user agent HTML equals response.contact soup equals BAUTIFUL soup HTML.parsing. I wonder if I'm able to. Cool. So I was able to just kind of copy it from the slides. I'm going to copy it fully. So that I make sure that it's exactly the same, and that I know I didn't make any human error. Cool. So that we know that's exactly the same. The next thing is get user tweets. It's interesting that some of you are getting the same problem too. I wonder if there is a problem with the instructions that I've been given or with the notes I'm looking at. But I think either way, if we don't get it to work, the things that I've said hold true, and you can definitely use them to continue to get it to work in the future. But I am going to try to do all the copy and pasting, and hopefully that does it. Nope. So we didn't copy right. And then the final clean tweets. Yeah. It seemed to have done something for us. And then it said that's classic. See, this is I preached to all of you that I should have been more careful about the the typos, and myself had a typo that said text instead of test. So it looks like that was probably the problem here, but let's see what happens when I type a message in. And we get a response from Jason Wynn, which is exactly what we wanted. So at least we got that to work now. And then so we can keep looking at what next steps would kind of look like. So let's see here. $58. So what changed? Your bot returns something that is a lot more like a sentence rather than random emojis and @ mentions. And in the next workshop, Python Part 3, which should be happening during Local Hack Day build, we're going to incorporate artificial intelligence so that our app can actually respond to our message rather than just returning a random tweet. So what today, just as a recap, we learned Python is a programming language you can use for many things. Regular expressions are used to clean data. And Python tools can use, it can include imports, returns, and you can use them to and try and accept blocks also. If you would like to take a quiz to see what you learned today, you can go to mlhcircle.host/quiz. But in terms of next steps and where to go from here, there's a lot of Python tutorials on codecademy.com, and there'll be a lot of there's just tons of different resources online on how to do all this different stuff. And if you're still getting a problem, what I suggest you do is to make sure that you checked into today's event using the organize link that I sent in the MLH Discord. And if you go to that link, then you should be able to check in for the event. And eventually, if it's not available right now, the slides that I had today will be available for you. So you can go through the slides and copy and paste the code like I did if it didn't work for you. But in general, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you learned a lot. And if you really liked learning about Python, I encourage you to go to Python Part 3 workshop, which you can check the local hack day build schedule to find out when that is. But with that, I wish you all the best of luck, and thanks for joining me today. Have a good one, everybody.